All right, so getting started then. First off, this is kind of my approach and understanding of trying out all of these modules for a while. Panels and Display Suite presented a lot of benefits for Drupal 7. Drupal 8 comes with a lot of things out of the box, and I honestly haven't seen a huge benefit to using Panels and Display Suite in Drupal 8 so far. I've found it a little bit buggy, and there's some other options that I think work better and are simpler. So for Drupal 7, I would recommend looking into Panels and Display Suite. And Drupal 8, I would recommend using layouts, which comes in core in Drupal 8, as well as a field formatter class that I'll go through. If you guys want to learn more about this, especially if you're on Drupal 7 and you want to know, okay, what is the difference between Panels and Display Suite, and why would I want one over the other? I did about 2 hours of video for these topics when we did Drupal Camp in 2016 that you guys can go watch. And I kind of go through a bit of how views works, and then how Panels and Display Suite work, and kind of talk about the pros and cons. The short version is that Panels gives you a lot more, but it's more overhead. It has conditional rules as far as when to display specific panels or blocks in a page. It does a lot of custom regions. You can create your layout very customizably in the interface, dragging it and designing your layout. Panels gives you a lot of that. You can include views in your panels, nodes, all kinds of content in Panels. Display Suite is a lot simpler, so it's a lot less overhead and a lot less getting used to the interface. And Display Suite basically gives you different layouts, and on your content formatting screen, you can just select different layouts. Panels also can, there's a module called Panelizer that's with Panels that lets you customize your layout per. There's a few things that Panels has that Display Suite doesn't, but sometimes you only want just some basic layout options, and Display Suite is all you need. So those are my suggestions for Drupal 7, and I have gone through them a lot in these videos. Yeah, so part 1 is Views, Display Suite, basic layouting, and also Seekeditor plugins that can help you with layouting. If you just need some layout help within the body of your node or your content, there's some great Seekeditor plugins that you can add to your website easily. Then again, I summarized Display Suite, went through Panels, went through Context, which is another module that's great for Drupal 7 or Drupal 8. And basically, what Context does is it lets you define a set of rules and cases to display things. So guess I can log into calendar.byu and show you what the context interface looks like really quick. Basically, we've defined all these different contexts. For this website, we define different contexts for the mobile version and the desktop version. I wouldn't recommend doing that because it's kind of laggy. It's not as fast. And I'd recommend just keeping the same HTML and making it responsive. But that's what was requested, so we did that. But for instance, let's just do the homepage. So this is the desktop homepage for the calendar, and you can see I have a breakpoint configuration that is at least 1024 pixels, and that the path is front. Then down here, you should see that this should look very familiar to you if you've looked at the blocks and regions screen. And basically, you can add any kind of block in here to your regions. So this is another option if you just want to have a nice custom page where you just place a lot of blocks. This is a great option too. And there's a lot of options here with different conditions. You could say, for this content type, always do this. You can also accomplish a lot of that just with placing your blocks in regions with the rules just with Drupal core. Does anyone have any questions so far just about this?
The main takeaway I got was look at your 2016 videos.
For panels and display suite, so if you're in Drupal 7, go through those 2 videos, yes. I'm going to talk a little more about Drupal 8 today, since that's kind of the direction many of us are going in. Yeah.
So is it advised that everybody switch to Drupal 8?
It depends. There's a few things that are still tricky to do in Drupal 8. However, for most cases, Drupal 8 is going to be great. There's so many things that I think over 100 contributed modules in Drupal 7 that have been bundled into core in Drupal 8. There's new features. There's improvements for how you can use services and APIs and all kinds of things with Drupal 8. It's also super fast to update and install modules. We can even show you that too. But basically, Drupal 8 has a ton of value to it. So there's only a few cases that doing something very custom may not be maybe harder with Drupal 8. Like if there's a module you require that is only in Drupal 7, then I would say stick with Drupal 7 for a little bit longer. But yeah.
All right. Bigger portion of websites, DOE websites, are in Drupal 7 or 8?
Because Drupal 8 is newer, there are more in Drupal 7 still. I think there are still some in Drupal 6 even that aren't being maintained very well. Again, I think that's mostly just people are very limited on their resources for maintaining and updating their websites. We see that a lot, that they don't get updated. There's websites I worked on as a student like 6 years ago that look exactly the same, and it's all my work that I did when I was a student 6 years ago. So I would say, but many of the resources we're developing, we're going forward with 8, and the Drupal users that have been active in the community recently are mostly looking at Drupal 8. So that means that many of the resources that we're going to be building and sharing will be in Drupal 8, and there's just a lot of cool stuff with 8 so that people are kind of looking at it. So I guess if you want afterwards or at lunch, we can chat about what your requirements would be for your website. It's likely that you could just use Drupal 8 without a problem. So, yeah. All right. Okay, so I want to go through some really cool things with Drupal 8 layouts. Basically, in Drupal 8, layouts is what allows you to define your own custom layouts. You can have your own little regions. You can define your own templates and styling, and it's really convenient for customizing. Basically, it gives you what we are accomplishing with panels and display suites, but with like unlimited customizability. So I will just come over here. Okay, so I have a website. I just added a few fields to my article content type, and I've enabled layout discovery and field layout, which are the items in core. And then I also enabled a module that I wrote that uses layouts, and that's what we'll kind of look into today, show you how that works. So now if I go over here to my article content type, you can see here I've got my different fields here. And if you are new to Drupal 8, you'll see there's your Manage Fields tab, your Manage Form Display, which is your edit screen, and your Manage Display, which is your public viewing the node screen. And you can do this on either one of these, but let's go to Manage Display for now. And you can see that by default, there's a content region, and then there's like a disabled region. If you click down here to custom display settings, you can see that you can enable other view modes, and we can even add other view modes. So that's what I'm going to start with doing. So I'm going to create a view mode for content. And I'm going to call it a BYU card format. And I'm also going to add a BYU feature card format. Now, display modes are just within Drupal core, right? So I've defined those, and now I have to come back to my content type, and I'll refresh. And then I have to say, go ahead and actually use those display modes for the article content type. Now, display modes are like default, teaser, full node. So I've defined these two tabs. Now, going to these display modes and changing these settings is not going to change anything else in my website because it's just for this display mode. Then I can use this display mode wherever I would like. So you could do this process for any time you want a certain kind of a summary or a certain type of a feature display of a node. There are basically endless possibilities for when you might want to use this. But so now I'm on my BYU card format. And if you look in layout, oh, whoops. That is not. So it's showing you that right now it's on one column. And a lot of these come out of the box with Drupal. These columns 1, 2, and 3. These custom ones are the ones that I defined in my module. So I'll show you how it works, and then if you guys want, I can show you the back end of how I built it. So I'll say I want the layout for BYU card, and save. And now you can see the regions change. So we have a main, then we have a classes region, attributes region, and a disabled. So I think I'm gonna drag my comments to disabled, and my color field I'm gonna put into my classes region, and I don't want a label. I'll put my tags at the bottom, put my display title at the top without a label, and save. Now, I created just a very basic view. Are you guys all familiar with views? So for those of you guys not familiar with views, you should come to my views session in the afternoon. But basically, views is a module in core in Drupal 8 or outside core in Drupal 7 that every website should use. And it allows you to create all kinds of displays, customizing the presentation of content, users, taxonomy terms, anything. Basically, also endless what you could do with views. So basically, I've created a page display, and I've told it I will display types of article content type, and right now it's just doing a teaser, which, if you guys remember, was one of the default display modes. I'm going to change it to my BYU card and apply. And save. And we'll go ahead and view the page. So we can see that, oh, there is a ton of content. Let's shorten that. So you can see in the view, it's display type, view mode. It's displaying the entire body, and that's way too big. So I'm going to do summary or trimmed instead. And it's 200 characters, so it's not so huge. Save. And now I'll refresh this. Ah, did it not save? But basically, one of the styling things is that we put this nice little box shadow around the card. It's very minimal styling, but this is what it accomplishes, right? There's just way too much content there, but let's see if it updates or if it's just cached. Hopefully this goes well. It's always up in the air when you try to demo things in your presentations. But all right, so next style I want to show you guys is something that we built for the web community website. If you guys have gone here, this is just all about the resources that the BYU web community has been putting together and documentation. So if you go to theme, you can see all of our current themes for BYU. And this card right here with a colored banner at the top, left and right region, and all of this, this is the feature card styling. So we built that as a component, and that's the styling we're going to try out next. So if we come back here, now I've got my BYU feature card. Now, pretend I'm using this and I didn't build the feature card, and I'm just trying it out, and I just want to quickly get that nice card style without doing a lot of work. I'm just going to change my layout to feature card. Save. And now I can see I've got quite a few regions. Got title, feature top, feature left, right, center, and then classes, attributes, and disabled. So I'm going to drag my color down to my classes. I set up that region so that this classes region will take whatever is put into this, whatever field's put into here, and apply that class to the card itself. So you can make customizations that way. But I can show that more later too. So I'm going to keep display title up here in the title section. And I'm going to rearrange some of these other fields so that they're not all in the title section. And again, shorten that to summary or trimmed. And links. Actually, I'm just going to disable that one. And I'm going to save. So now I have a BYU card and a BYU feature card display mode. And now here in my view, I can change to use BYU feature card instead. Oh, good. Title happens to be extremely long because I auto-generated this content. But basically, okay, it pulled in the colored styling for the title, pulled in my image on the left, my content in the middle, my extremely long content in the middle. But basically, it's pulling in my styling. Now, oh, you can see how this one is royal blue and this one is navy, which is the default. And that's because I selected that color field to go into my class. So this class royal blue title is the class. And if we go and create an article, you'll see how that field is set up and how that works. So I have a color field, and you can select whichever one. Now, the key for this field is set up to be properly formatted for the class so that it knows, so that it knows how to style it. Because it has that royal blue title class added. So basically that's how someone would use a layout module once we build it. If you guys want, I can also show you guys how I defined that feature card layout and the BYU card layout and the styling and everything if you guys want to see that. Is that of interest to you guys?
Yeah, nice.
Once we define one of these layout modules, then we can just share it with the community, and it's super quick and easy to implement the same kind of nice styling across different websites. So the first step in doing that was to create the web component. Have you guys heard about web components yet? No, not really. Okay, so basically that's what the web community's been building most recently for the last year and a half, is we've been building web components. And basically, and there's a couple other sessions about it today. So if you guys are interested, you guys should go to Kevin's session this afternoon. Will be about this stuff too. His is at 2:30. Yeah. Oh, so it's at the same time as my views one. But either way, you can watch the videos afterwards too. But basically, web components are basically like an HTML component, like a div or a paragraph, but we've defined them to be a custom component. So if we go and look, you can see that I have this, instead of being a div, it's a BYU feature card. I defined that component and I told the browser, this is how it looks. These are the colors it uses. It has this box shadow, and this is how it behaves. And so I defined that as a web component. And then all you need to do to utilize that web component is reference a small JavaScript file and small CSS file. And then your browser will know how to use this web component. So in github.com/BYUweb is where we've been putting all our web components. And this is the one that I built for BYU Feature Card. And this is an example of how you would use it. So literally, if you wanted to get started, you could just reference this JavaScript file, reference the CSS file, and copy and paste this HTML, and you would have a start, right? So basically, I've defined these regions: title, feature left, feature right. Basically, they're like regions for the component. And in here, that gets included, I have already built in that styling, and I've documented that these are the color classes that you are allowed to use for the top. Those are the styles that are built in. Yeah. So basically, first we built the web component. And it's not too hard to build those. Joseph Moore has built a generator, basically, so you can use the generator and it'll spin up the basics of a web component. And then you can basically just do some basic HTML, JavaScript, and CSS and kind of put it together. It's not very hard. I just learned from them how to do this over the last year and a half. It didn't take that long to do it, but we've been building them for about a year and a half. And you can go and browse the ones that we already have in BYU Web. But basically, that's where the styling comes from. Now, the next step, as far as just doing the layout module to have the interface between the web component and Drupal, I built the layout module. And we can see that. Oh, whoops. Okay. We put all our Drupal resources on Drupal.org, but I never remember the URL to get to our university page. But I'll share this URL. It's drupal.org/Brigham Young University, and this has every Drupal module or theme that we have put out recently in this new version the last year. So in here, I've got this BYU layout card module, and you can see it it adds the interface for BYU card and BYU feature card. And what this module does is it creates the layout options that you select right here. That's what I'm doing with this module. So if we go I'm not even using my slides at all. I think I saved all these links in my slides, but you can browse the code repository. Okay, so I've got just a couple of files in here. For Drupal 8, there's always a libraries file. Whenever you want to add CSS or JavaScript into a Drupal 8 website, you define it as a library. Okay, so this is our basic info file saying this is the module. Then we've got our libraries file. And, oh, that's supposed to say global. But basically, here I've defined this library BYU card, and I say the JavaScript is located here in the CDN. We have a CDN hosted on Amazon so that we can reference all our JavaScript and CSS from the CDN, and it loads very quickly. Also, the advantage of using a CDN is while you're loading your local resources, you can be loading a CDN resource at the same time, whereas if it was saved locally, it would have to wait in line with all your other local resources, basically. So you can load it at the same time. So there's a lot of benefits to using a CDN, and we put all our component files up there so you can reference them easily and quickly. So basically, I defined that I have JavaScript and CSS here that I will be using. And then I have a layouts file that says I'm defining a layout called BYU card and a layout called BYU feature card. And you guys probably remember seeing all of these regions over here, feature right, feature center. I defined those right here. So title, feature top, and I defined all of these regions to correspond to the regions that I defined in the BYU web components that I made in the first step. So basically, you can just start with this quick little example. There's examples online. So when I built this, I basically just copied an example, changed my names, and it wasn't very difficult either. Now, the template file I have here, so I've got BYU card, BYU feature card. It knows to use this template file. Here at the top, I say, when you are using this template, when you're making one of these cards, I want you to go and load my BYU feature card library. So this will load the JavaScript and the CSS that the web component requires. And then I kind of loop through and format, but basically I print out BYU feature card. I print out my class that I got from that class region. And then I go through and whatever field you put in the title section, so whatever field you put here in the title section, it will loop through and put it in properly. And I do that for each region. So you can have multiple fields in your different regions and it prints it out. So basically that's how I define that module. And as we build more web components with nice styling, we can just, start from this module, clone it, tweak things, change the regions, change the naming, right? And then we have a nice little interface for using that styling. And when they come to Drupal, literally all they have to do is select the layout right there and drag their fields into the right places. So this isn't just an amazing thing we can do with Drupal 8. Basically, I think what Display Suite does in Drupal 8 is it just defines a few of these. But it is pretty easy just to define your own in here. So I don't see a big help with doing Display Suite or panels in Drupal 8. Another thing is in core, this layout builder is being worked on. So it's still experimental. I haven't tried it out yet. But with the next big update for Drupal 8, they're going to be releasing this layout builder, and there's going to be tons of options just for dragging and dropping with your layouts and everything. So there's a ton of cool layout stuff that's coming down the line in I think like 4 to 6 months it'll be out, and there will be tons of cool drag and drop layout building options. And so at that point too, I think we'll just be using Drupal 8 core for all our layout needs. Oh, one other thing that's super helpful. This is just a module that that I end up using a lot. You can use this for Drupal 7 or Drupal 8. Oh, I guess here. And it's just called Field Formatter Class, and all it does is where you have your field, you can define custom classes. And before, you kind of had to do this with panels or display suite, which is kind of a big overhead if all you need is just to add some classes and put your styling in place, right? Now, I want to show you how you can really utilize this amazingly. If you also use the module called Field Group, this module, oh, let me zoom in. Can you guys see that okay? It's a little blurry. You can create groups for your fields to be placed in. Now, the benefit you can see here is you create a group and then you add a class. You could be adding classes that say, well, this group display in a 2/3 region and this group display in a 1/3 width region. You could, and then you're just using CSS. You could use, if you're using a Bootstrap theme, you could just use Bootstrap column classes to theme regions and sections to whatever width you want. Literally, you can get, you can customize your displays completely just with using field groups and classes, and then your own CSS. So that's another great benefit that it doesn't even take that much to accomplish that. So if you guys want to see an example of that, I did that a lot for the new BYU homepage. Log into the test site and show you guys. So one of my main projects for the site was doing this about website or about page. And if we go in to content type about and manage display, you can see how I've done this. Okay, so I have this about bar and I added these classes, background light gray. Now it instantly has a light gray background. I just have defined that class. I can reuse it every time I want a section to have a light gray background. Full width bar. Every time I want the bar to be full width instead of constrained, I add that class. Then I added the custom class so I could customize just that region. And then on these links individually, I've got this V3 was our font style. So that applies the font size and weight that I want for that text. Extra space gives that extra spacing around the text. So basically I have a set of defined styles and classes, and then I just apply them on my fields, and I don't have to write anything super custom just to style my code or style my page. I can just use those classes. And instead of saying, okay, on the about page, in this section, go down to that one piece of text, now style it, I just have my class, and then I just apply the class where I want it. So with this field group module and the field formatter class module, you can accomplish a ton just out of the box with Drupal, basically. Well, with those two modules. Does anyone have any questions about all this that we've been talking about? Okay. Now let's see. Let's see what else I was going to talk about. Haven't really stuck to my slides, but a lot of the information that we've talked about has been in here. Oh, I was also going to go over some Sass styling. How many of you guys are using CSS instead of Sass? How many of you guys are using Sass? Okay, cool. So there's room for Sass improvement. I love Sass. Once you start using it, you can't really go back. It's a pain to write in normal CSS afterwards. But basically, Sass is an advanced CSS formatting. It can contain plain CSS as well, but it has a lot of features that you can utilize. It's at one point, though, and this is the part that I think scares people away from Sass. Sass is not understood by the browser. You have to pre-process it back into normal CSS for the browser to understand. But the benefits you get from Sass are for the developer. As you're writing your code and as you're maintaining it, there's a ton of benefits. So it's totally worth it. It's just people get scared about that whole pre-processing. But I'll show you it's not that hard to take care of. All right. Okay, so benefits, it saves time coding, helps ensure consistency with variables and settings. You don't have slightly different colors in different places all throughout your code, or different sizes, different breakpoints, because you're using variables. You can reuse the same code in many places, so you don't have to rewrite the same code. It's basically the same, so your files can be smaller, it's easier to maintain. And let's say you have the same kind of button styling and you've implemented it in 20 places in your website. If you're using Sass and you will need to tweak that button, you tweak it in one place and you're done, rather than having to go find all 20 places and make sure it's all changed everywhere. It also allows importing other files so you can organize your files into smaller bite-sized chunks that are easier to organize. And just organizing your code in general, it's a lot easier to read. Okay, so pre-processing is the part that that people don't always understand how it works. Basically, for Drupal 7, you can use the pre-pro and Sassy modules, and you don't have to do anything. You write your Sass, you turn on those modules and tell them to run, and every time they detect a Sass file, they automatically pre-process it and output a CSS version for your browser to use. For Drupal 8, I just use Gulp, which is a command line tool, so that as I'm building my theme, I make my updates, and I type Gulp dist or Gulp CSS, whatever I've defined my like shortcut as, and it compiles it. So it's very easy. There's a few steps to get it set up, but it's really not that hard, and it's definitely totally worth it. All right, so one big bonus of Sass is being able to define variables. This is great for, you should always use it for your colors, your breakpoints, or widths that you're going to have to reuse, any kind of width that you're going to have to reuse, or number, and settings. Also, I will post all these slides, and I've got lots of links in here to examples you can look at too. So for instance, all of your colors should just be defined in one section. Then you can literally just say background, light gray, color, navy, and you don't have to remember the hex codes for all your colors, and then you're always using the same ones. Then also, if they decide, oh, 666 isn't dark enough to be accessible all the time, we want to change it to 555 everywhere. Change it one line, recompile, and it's all ready. Okay, so this is one awesome example where we've done this. This is the new BYU header and footer. Hopefully you guys have seen it. We've got our colors file defined here. And that's all it is. This colors Sass file is now referenced in other places, and all those color variables are used throughout dozens of files. But it's easy to maintain them in that one place. Okay, mixins are another great thing. This is wonderful anytime that you would be reusing the same kind of styling. Anytime you'd have the same kind of box shadows on multiple types of elements, or button styles, or font styles. Basically, anytime that your code is going to be similar to something else you did, even if it's slightly different, you should use mixins. So, for instance, I created a mixin bottom shadow, and this is just a set of box shadows. And then, so for this website, there's 4 main box shadows that they use throughout the site. They don't have to decide, oh, what kind of box shadow should we do on this new element? They could just try out these 4 options, and then there's consistent styling. We have 4 box shadows that we always use. So it's cleaner from a design perspective. And also later, if they want to adjust it, adjust one place, fixed everywhere. So here's another case, buttons. I love using mixins for buttons because you're usually going to have your classic standard button, and then you're going to have a few buttons that are slightly different. So for this one, I set up a base mixin small button, my font, my colors, background. I include some display flex mixin right here. So I'm referencing another mixin that includes all the display flex information. And then I also have a small button hover mixin. Then here I've got this blue line button, and I say include small button, which means include everything here, and then also make the color blue and the border blue. And that's all. I didn't have to copy all of this and put it in here, but it will be there when the browser goes to understand this. So for maintaining your code, it's a lot cleaner. It's easier to fix things than maintain, and it's just organized nicely. And you have names to your little, mix-ins, your little bundles of code. Oh yeah, so then, and then also you can include it. So for this specific case, I didn't, for some reason, have blue line button referenced as a class in this case, but right in here in this specific case, I say include blue line button mixin. Then everything here, including the small button styling, is now being applied to this class right here. And then on hover, I'm referencing the hover version. So you probably noticed that I'm nesting things and doing some different things that you don't see in CSS, but I'll also get into that too. Just another example, I've got tint basic, like it was a color tint styling that we did. And then they have their basic mix-in, and then blue one, I changed the background to be blue tint. So it's very helpful whenever you're repeating any little bit of code. It's great. Now nesting, you saw in some of the other examples, nesting is another great benefit of using Sass. Instead of doing parent div, child div, background gray, and parent div, child div, paragraph, font size 16, you can just do parent div, child div, background, and then a nested paragraph, meaning this paragraph will equal the same as this, font size 16. So
it's basically the thing you've always wondered why you can't do.
Yes, exactly. So like you saw up here, right here, inside the button, if there's a paragraph tag inside the button class, then it applies the font size right there too. Because I have the font size here, but then every once in a while, there would be a paragraph tag inside and it wouldn't get the right font size. So I added that, right? So yeah, nesting is super convenient because I feel like we already think that way in our brains when we're styling this stuff anyway. So it can get messy if you do too many levels too deep. So try avoiding that. If you're getting too many levels deep, like it helps to, like when you, here I'll show you in code. Let's see. Oh yeah. So for instance, I've got several levels here. If I want to check where I'm at here, PHP Storm is so great. So I can see, oh, it's inside demographics 3 is the class. You can see at the top. Okay, so this is within demographics 3, and then this just goes up to my navy circle. So it's demographics 3, navy circle, and then this styling. So PHP Storm helps a lot with seeing where your levels are with nesting. But just try to keep it clean. If it's getting huge and gargantuan, which some of mine kind of do, just try to keep it clean so that it's easy to read. But it should be helping you, not hindering you. But I find it especially useful when you're like, oh, and this also when it's hover, or also when there's a paragraph inside, and rather than doing a whole other line of code and making really long lines of selectors like this. It's great. Also, another great use case for nesting is when you want to adjust a few things only if there's a parent class, like a browser Chrome or Safari adjustments or mobile adjustments. We've done that a number of times too. Let's see, I think on this about page I've got, yeah, so here at the bottom I have my browser changes. So I've got here at the top, I've got my not Chrome is Safari class, and then all of these changes are just for Safari. That helps a lot because you don't want to accidentally apply it to the wrong case, and so that has helped a lot. I know we're almost out of time, so I'll hurry. But I have some other links if you guys want to go see more examples, but really Sass is just amazing.
SCSS lets you use double slashes as comments.
Yes, that's another thing that I love is it's so much faster to do the comments too. You can also put the media queries inside of the selector. In CSS, you have to have it always outside. So I find this convenient when it's like everything for this one div. Oh, and also for mobile, adjust this one thing. Again, one more thing. This ampersand is a unique CSS selector. It's in CSS, but not everyone knows about it. If you use this and sign, then it's saying this full width bar, if it also does have this class also do this. So it's not a child of this, it's an additional class. So this also helps and saves time organizing that way too. Yeah, and again, pre-processing, it will turn it back into this normal CSS for your browser, but then you get to have all these benefits of organizing your code better, maintaining it easier, keeping it clean, and reusing things. Also, okay, you can import other files into each other. We can get into more of that. You can do math, which is so great. This will be my last example because I know we have to go for other class. And for lunch, I mean. But this was super helpful because on the BYU homepage, they wanted all these things aligned with each other, and it would have been a nightmare to do without being able to use math. So down here in the map section, I had all these little animations, and they wanted all of these things aligned together. And this aligned right here, and this circle aligned right where the dots were, and this right where this was, and this right where this was, all of these alignments. And it would have been a nightmare if I couldn't have done math. So 735, 846. Let's see. Oops. Ah, interpreted working. Up to line 846. Okay, so I had these settings, variables, for the widths and adjustments for the circles and margin spacing amounts, and then I just did math and used these variables to make sure that the widths and alignments were adding up because I want the one thing aligned to let's see. Oh, where did it go? For instance, the circle would be like this width minus half of its own width to go back to be aligned to the, Anyway, it would have been a nightmare to do all these alignments without math. And Sass also gives so. Another great thing about it, here's some awesome examples you can go look at online. The homepage would have been a complete nightmare if we hadn't had Sass, but basically any big project, Sass makes it amazing. And there's some great links here that just help you get familiar and walk you through more. I can take a couple quick questions real quick if you guys have them. Hopefully this was helpful.
This where it says layouts and SASS, that should have been SCSS. But it's sassy, so.
Yeah, so the Sass file is a dot. You could do SASS or SCSS, and I do SCSS, but it's said like that, so I spelled it that way. Yeah, it's called SASS in general terms, but yeah, the files are SCSS in the end. But yep, so thanks for coming. And we will have a video recording of this posted, and for all the sessions, there should be a video posted later. So.